Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Planning Board special meeting of March 14th, 2024, 9 a.m. As we have a quorum here today, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As always, our first job is to check for conflicts of interest. Does any member of the planning board have a conflict of interest or the appearance of conflict of interest with regard to any item on the agenda? If so, please state so at your time. We'll start, Richard.
I do not.
I do not.
I do not.
I do not as well.
Okay. Second item, agenda today. Obviously a simple agenda. An item of one old business on there. Any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, a motion to approve the agenda as published.
I go so moved.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No nays. So the agenda is approved. Our first item of business is public comments on agenda items only. And as before, or as always, 3 minutes per speaker at the podium. State your name and address for the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. And also, those not making comments, please allow the person to speak without interruption. Any person like to make a public comment? Step up, please.
I just have a really simple question. Penny Von Bergen Wessel's Willowbank Place, Ocean Isle Beach, community of Ocean Ridge. I've examined the maps that I found in your agenda items and expanded them so I could see them a little bit better. How are you accessing C1? I don't see any roads getting in or out of C1 except Ocean Ridge roads.
Thank you. Anyone else? Gentlemen?
Good morning. My name is George Smith. I live at 7406 Huckleberry Lane in Sunset Beach. And I just wanted to say I spoke against this development at the last meeting. And I want to commend the applicant for going back to the drawing board and doing some work on this. I still think it's too many dwelling units and too much traffic coming out onto Seaside Road. I would say that this is the year when you should open up Angel Trace Road. It was a subject that Mr. Dysinger brought up, and it was a thread in the conversation at the previous meeting. And it would be really good if the owners of that road would get together this year. This is the year when that needs to become a part of this proposed development, and it would be a huge benefit to the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there anyone? Do we have people in the second room?
Please come forward.
Okay. Go ahead, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes. Hi, my name is Mary Sheridan. I live at 6938 Ascension Drive, Southwest, in the community of Sunset Ridge. Our community had a 4-day petition signing campaign going, and we received 525 signatures just within 4 days opposing the conditional zoning of Angel's Trace. We feel that it will greatly impact our community, and we wanted this just to be put on the record. Thank you.
You. Sir? Do you have a comment?
Richard Davis. I'm from 1273B Marsilio Lane in Sunset Ridge, and I just wanted to make a comment on the heritage trees. That's something that I noticed is that the contractors usually don't have an arborist to manage the landscaping around the trees. And most of the trees that I've seen end up dying eventually because they weren't properly, well, when they do the landscaping or excavating, I think what's happening is they destroy a lot of the roots because the process is just to keep the tree there without really taking care that it survives. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Public comment? Gentleman in the back.
Greg Lynch, 7032 Bonaventure Street in Sunset Ridge Development. From my understanding, the original plan was 1,034 homes. And after that, they wanted to add other multiple dwellings because they said their market research showed that that's what the area is looking for. I guess I wonder, why don't they just stick with 1,034 total and include those other things in that original quantity? I have some concerns from this area as it's growing as quickly as it is with water and power, being able to supply the area. From what I can see, I can't find anything in terms of how much excess energy is available as we grow. And I talked to someone the other day, said, well, we'll just get it from Duke Energy. The only thing is, if you look at it, Duke Energy, their nuke plant was scheduled for 40-year lifespan, which expired in 2016. They've extended it to 2034 to 2036. If we need new power plants, if you look at the permitting it takes to build that and how long it takes and increase water supply, I just don't see how in heck we'll keep up with what is going on in this area. You know, a lot of us moved from semi-suburban areas where the population density and the lot sizes are like you'd almost hand a cup of sugar to your neighbor. And I look at some of these lot sizes they predicted. I just don't see why we're trying to do that to this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, that concludes the public comment, or the first public comment period. Old business today is taking up the second meeting on the Angels Trace conditional zoning application. So I'll turn it over to Chad, our planning director, to give us an introduction on that, and then we'll move forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Planning Board. Thank you for having me today. I'm going to briefly introduce a couple changes that were submitted into this recent site plan submittal and a document. And then I'll really kind of turn it over to the applicant to really kind of let them explain the changes that they made and the decision coming out of the last meeting in February. The main change that you'll see is on the southeast side of this. Instead of a storage unit facility, you now have a build-to-rent multifamily home there.
Quiet. Yep. Let them finish.
You have a build-to-rent multifamily there, which would be, in your purview, just a multifamily entity that is allowed in our table of uses that they are implementing into there. The rental part of it, Town of Sunset Beach does not regulate short or long-term rentals, as you are aware of that. The other big thing to note, and I do have a gentleman,
One question and clarification.
sure,
For this application, footprints were required for that area.
that is on me. I missed
Well, it's
that.
on the applicant, they didn't put it in.
Yeah, fair.
But my reading of the UDO is on non-residential and multifamily residential, we require footprints.
That's correct. Like I said, I missed that. So put that burden back onto me. The other thing to note is that the church behind, the 4 acres behind where the church is. Yeah. Yeah. The 4 acres behind the church and the applicant are within due diligence period. I met with representatives of the church for about 30 minutes late last week. They do have a gentleman here that is representing them if you have any kind of questions that may come out of that for clarification. The extra thing that was submitted into by the applicant was, you will also see, sorry, I'm a little scatterbrained this morning. You'll see the red heritage trees and regulated trees that are located on the site plan and where they lay out as far as with the footprints throughout the site plan submittal in red. And if you go to packet page
D1. D1.
Packet page 13, you will see proposed conditions for the Angels Trace conditional zoning. So if there's any questions on any updated submittal,
Okay.
I'll be happy to answer them. The applicant is here, representation for them is here. Yeah.
Okay. I guess the way to proceed is we have the applicant here, so I guess my preference is we provided a list of concern. It's up to the applicant whether they want to do a general overview or go down to 18 points to say what has been done to remedy those concerns.
Good morning,
Morning.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name's Sam Frank. I represent the applicant. I'd like to do both. This is a relatively complex proposal, and so I'm not going to spend a lot of time reviewing what we spoke about previously, but I do want to recap it just briefly. So we have a presentation. Get my casual book. Great. Thank you. Again, my name's Sam Frank. With me today are 2 representatives of the recently acquired landowner. That is the landowner who recently acquired the property. Tim Long and D. Logan Jr. are here. We also have 2 representatives from our civil engineer, Matt Haley and Sophia Jones. To the extent you have questions for us that go beyond the expertise of an attorney and are better answered by the technical experience of an engineer, please don't hesitate to interrupt me and to ask. Thank you, Matt. I would have just plowed on forward there. Appreciate you catching the date.
I think
I'll give them 3 presentations.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. So just as again, a brief reminder, 396 acre site consists of 9 parcels. Existing zoning is MR3. The property is currently located in the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the town of Sunset Beach, which means you provide planning, control, and oversight with regard to the property. and some public services to the property, and the owners of the property are not yet taxpayers in the town of Sunset Beach. The current by right entitlement for the property is 1,034 single-family lots that are almost entirely homogeneous. That is to say, they're uniform. They support a single-family lot and single-family home, and that's it. As you know, we propose something different and something better. We appreciate your comments. Really enjoyed the dialogue the last time we were here a month ago. Much of what you had to say enabled us to evolve the plan further in a way that we feel is positive. And in addition to being positive, is responsive to the comments that you provided to us. The first thing that you noted, or probably the most significant thing that you noted, was that you thought the lot sizes were too small, and that you thought that there were too many of them. And so we have responded to that by increasing the lot size for the single family lots in a meaningful way, and also by reducing the number of homes in total and in specific with regard to the single family homes. So now we've adjusted the plan such that the average lot size is 8,000 feet. The types of homes to be delivered are similar in concept. That is to say, we still intend to deliver single family homes, townhomes, market rate apartments, and also age restricted apartments. Still have incorporated commercial uses and a religious use as well. This slide demonstrates the latest evolution, the current proposed plan compared to the by right plan. Demonstrates to you not only the variety of housing types and how they're incorporated into the design, but also the incorporation of larger areas of open space. So as I mentioned, first and foremost, our adaptation to the plan based on your comments was to change the size of the lots and change the number of the lots. We also heard you with regard to the rear setback and the size of the rear lot yards on the lots. And so we increased the rear setback to double it from 10 to 20 feet. This is an image to show you, again, one of your comments to us was we're kind of uncomfortable with the concept of 5-foot side setbacks. Don't really understand what that means and how that's a positive thing. Wanted to share some images to show you how that kind of community would look in real life. These are images of Sparrows Bend, a community developed by this same landowner that demonstrates that lay of the land, so to speak. It's worth note, and this is technical, but worth pointing out that your code contemplates side setbacks from the edge of the eaves as opposed to the edge of the structure. Most jurisdictions do it the other way. Most jurisdictions go to the structure. So when you've got a 24-inch eave on a home, that means that in practice in Sunset Beach, the structures will have effectively 7 feet from the side lot line or 14 feet in between each other at a minimum. Whereas in most jurisdictions, that would be a 10-foot dimension rather than a 14-foot dimension. On the current, you asked that we consider evaluating changing the side setback. We did. On further evaluation, that eats in so significantly, to do so would eat in so significantly to the available open space that we declined to change that on this proposed plan. The open space. I'm sorry, who am I presenting to today? Mr. Chairman, do you want me to repeat anything for mine?
Feel free to clarify if you think necessary what that previous statement was.
Sure. And forgive me, I'm just trying to follow the appropriate etiquette here. I can't speak to everybody. Our presentation is to you, and glad to answer any questions you may have.
Proceed.
Do you wish for me to weigh in? I mean, I think he's given his presentation. He's entitled to give it without interruption. And I don't think questions from the gallery are appropriate.
And certainly glad to respond to any questions you or the other members of the board or council may have. Yeah. So, and since you've asked, I'll say it again. You asked us to evaluate whether or not to increase the side setback. On the current plan, we chose not to do so because we evaluated it and concluded that to do so would chew up too much of the open space. The open space did change some, of course, by increasing those rear lot sizes and changing the number of lots, rear yard sizes and changing the number of lots. The plan as we proposed it to you previously had just over 18% open space. The current plan has just under 16% open space. The open space areas, one of the additional notes you provided to us was that you didn't care for the very, very narrow but long strips of open space, and we've effectively removed those in concert with increasing the lot sizes and increasing those rear lot sizes. And so we've maintained the large areas of open space, been able to make some of those larger, and also have eliminated some of the smaller areas of open space in the project. All right, with regard to height, heard you, understand your comment there, adapted the plan and more specifically, really the conditions to agree that we will abide by the UDO height for single family at 35 feet and also agreed to reduce the maximum height for commercial and multifamily from 55 feet to 47 feet. This is just a slide depicting the concept with regard to open space, as I mentioned a moment ago. It's an image that gives you a rendering. Again, this is concept, but gives you an idea of what the open space would feel like along one of the stream areas. There's multiple throughout the community. Mr. Jones, you asked that we consider specifically designating certain open space areas in the development to be maintained in their natural condition. Well, we certainly can't control what wildlife chooses to live and doesn't choose to live within the community. Understood the purpose and intent of your comment and have incorporated a condition responsive to it. The slide on the screen now shows you the specific open spaces that we are willing to identify on the plan as to be maintained in natural condition. Buffers, this is unchanged, but important that the buffer requirement per the UDO is 10 feet. We've tripled that on this design to incorporate a 30-foot wide buffer. Tree preservation and mitigation, current plan abides by the UDO that was in place at the time that it was approved. Proposed plan would abide by the tree provisions in the code that's in place today. Pretty meaningful impact. So the surveyed trees under the old design that would deserve either mitigation or protection, 123 of them. The number of surveyed trees under the new UDO, same piece of land, over 700 trees that are identified either for mitigation or protection. There are several heritage trees on the site. We care about them greatly. So do you. We heard those comments and appreciate them. Agreed to incorporate a condition that we will use all commercially reasonable efforts to preserve those heritage trees by avoiding designing any elements of the site that would sit on top of those heritage trees. And elements of the site, I mean roads, new stormwater ponds, building envelopes for lots, and the like. So how do we do that? This is just two examples, but this gives you an idea of how you accomplish protecting those heritage trees. Where heritage tree coincides with a road location, we split the road and make the right-of-way substantially wider and incorporate a landscaped island in the middle to support that tree. Where a tree is located at the in a pod where duplex homes would be located, we eliminated duplex homes on the location of that tree site and protect the tree. Mr. Jones also asked that we agree to incorporate a condition obligating a component of the common area for a pollinator garden, and we've incorporated such a condition into the proposal. Neighboring developments, specifically you asked, is it possible for us to incorporate an access road from a stub out for an access road from our development that would align with the connection for the neighboring development at Pelican Reserve? We looked at that. It's not realistic to do so. As you can see from the image on the screen, there is not only wetlands, but a blue line stream that run across our property. can, should, and will be protected in order to protect that area of natural condition and open space. We cannot put a road that stubs out directly across from the road across the street. You asked us if we would be willing to increase the design capacity of our stormwater management system. We evaluated that as we promised we would, and concluded that we can do so. And so we have, yes, sir.
Okay.
So we've agreed to design to a condition that compels us to design to the 50-year storm, which is, of course, is above and beyond the requirements of your ordinance. There were several comments about traffic, and that's an interesting and expected topic, line of conversation, right? In this case, the public roads that adjoin the property are NCDOT roads. They're not maintained by the town. They're not maintained by the county. They're maintained by the state. And when we go to build, when we go to pull driveway permits, the state will compel us to deliver a completed TIA, and that TIA will compel us to make certain improvements. The state gets to decide what those improvements are. We don't get to decide. You don't get to decide where there needs to be a turn lane, where there needs to be a median, whether or not there needs to be an additional traffic light. The practical reality is NCDOT is not going to get around to improving this road anytime soon on its own, but in connection with this development, if the zoning is approved and if we proceed to pull those driveway permits, improvements will be made to the roads, and they'll be made at our expense, and they'll be dictated by the DOT. I wanted to demonstrate a practical consequence of traffic flow with the revised design. And what you see on the screen here now is the currently approved plan is shown on the left. The current updated proposed plan is shown on the right. And there's a single point of access to 904 where all the traffic funnels on the current plan. Under the new plan, there are multiple points of access for ingress and egress. There's actually a third there that goes around the church on the right on the proposed plan. But as a practical matter, we think that the bulk of the traffic will follow the two paths that I've depicted there. There's also an emergency point of access that goes to the existing section of Angel's Trace that's shown on the plan. And as we discussed previously, but as is also noted here, the section of homes that's located in the northwest corner is accessed by the roads through the existing Ocean Ridge roads that go through the existing Angel's Trace community. So as you can see, with this evolution of the design, if the zoning is approved, we get the benefit of multiple points of access where there was previously only one. Of course, traffic flow benefits from multiple points of access because you divide the traffic across those points of access depending on where people leaving the community and entering the community want to go. You asked us to get rid of self-storage. That use wasn't very popular with you as the members of the planning board. We respect your opinion. We evaluated whether or not that was a viable change, concluded that it is, took the self-storage off. In place of the self-storage, we proposed to build homes. So multifamily townhomes. The total count on the number of homes, as I mentioned, we reduced. The way that math works, we took about 130 lots out of the design since we were with you last, reduced the count by 130 homes in total. But then by changing self-storage to residential, we added 80 homes back. So what you see is a net reduction in the number of anticipated homes of 50. We also incorporated an express condition that no matter what, the total number of homes will be capped at 1,630, which was not previously included and is now. So we told you when we were here last that we were willing to annex. You asked us what that means and what that looks like. We've now agreed to an express condition that would compel annexation of this land within 30 months of approval of the zoning. And so while that was always our intention and understood to be part of the rezoning, we're more than happy to incorporate that into a condition that's included in the zoning itself. This is the explanation again of that total count for the number of residences. Brought it down by about 8%, but then incorporated some more, responsive to your comment that we remove the self-storage component. The resulting density is about 4.1 units per acre, just over 4 units per acre. That's the equivalent of 10,000 square foot lots if you were just to do single family residential throughout the entire thing. An acre has about 44,000 square feet, and therefore 10,000 foot lots get you to about 4 units per acre. Single family mix, just by way of explanation, try to provide some images here to give you an idea of the feel of the type of homes that would be developed on a 42, 52, and 65 foot wide lot, which are the design lot sizes that we anticipate now. Again, that's a meaningful increase from what we had previously proposed. Those single family lot sizes now average out at 8,000 feet. Townhome areas and multifamily areas are deliberately concentrated both towards the center of the community and closer to the commercial uses. And of course, the main thoroughfare there on 904. You asked us to evaluate whether or not we could create vehicular interconnectivity for the commercial pocket to the remainder of the development. Again, we have significant interconnectivity via pedestrian pathways for that retail and commercial area for the balance of the development. The environmental aspects of the land make it unrealistic to incorporate a road there. And so we did not change the plan in that regard. We'll rely instead on vehicular access from 904 to communicate with and interact with that commercial area. The spot shown in blue, I mentioned this previously, but just want to clarify again that just before our last meeting with you, we changed the desired use of that section of land to allow for the possibility of religious use or residential use. And the reason for that is that we are hopeful that the church will acquire that piece of land and expand its operations to include it. There's just another quick summary of where the land uses other than residential are located on the plan. So, as is always the case, you've heard a lot of comments from citizens and from people who aren't citizens who live nearby, who are concerned about change, who are uncomfortable with the concept that this is a change to the use of land that was previously anticipated. Completely normal, completely to be expected. That happens. It is an ordinary course of my day-to-day life. I get it. You also heard that there's a petition prepared by over 500 people, some citizens, some not, who would like for this land plan to stay exactly the same way that it is. You also have thousands and thousands of citizens who are not on that petition, and their interests are represented by your future land plan. At the end of the day, any zoning application is ultimately analyzed by comparison to your policy documents, your comprehensive plan, your future land use map. That is the barometer by which you evaluate whether or not the proposed design is in the best interest of the town. What we have proposed here is overwhelmingly consistent with your future land use plan. It is significantly more consistent with your future land use plan than the current by right approval for over 1,000 single family homes. You identify that area as medium density residential. You say specifically that you desire a variety of housing type uses, including single family, two family, townhome, and age appropriate. And you describe a density in the future land use plan that is actually much greater than the density that we've proposed here. So for all of those reasons, we believe and respectfully request that you should approve the design as proposed. I have a few more slides that are intended just to show character of development. We started with those last time. I'd like to finish with them now. Again, just trying to give you an idea of the feel of the community that we desire to incorporate into the town here. And with that said, I'm eager to answer any questions that you may have for us or for the engineers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As far as us on the board goes, I guess I still would like to go point by point through this and get board questions on each point so that we stay somewhat topical as we go along, even though the order may not be optimal. So,
Can I just make one comment before we begin
sure.
relating to the land use plan? I've read that land use plan, and in terms of its strategic vision, my takeaway is a complete variance with what you've just shared. And I believe the other issue with the land use plan is it is somewhat out of date. In the original land use plan, and I'm not sure whose responsibility that was, the land use plan was supposed to be amended every 2 years. And some of the numbers that you quote from that land use plan do not reflect the trend that we've established to more align the tactical application of the land use plan with its strategic vision. So that's an issue that I just wanted to raise in the beginning before we start to go down this list. Thanks.
Okay. Any other general comments from the board, Jerry?
No, good right now.
Okay.
May I make a
Yes.
legal comment, though? The applicant is entitled to rely upon what the town's governing UDO and land use plans are. The analogy would be changing the rules in the middle of the game if you're going to ignore it because you believe it's outdated or that you believe it should have been updated. They're entitled to a review of their application based upon your current land use plan and UDO at the time they submitted the application. To judge their application on things that you believe should have been updated in something but have not been would be inappropriate.
If I can just respond to that,
Well, let's not drag this out.
I completely agree with Grady's statement there. Where I do have some disagreement is there are opportunities for different interpretations of the clearly stated strategic vision of the land use plan, which I think we can have some, but you're right, in terms of some of the technical details, whether or not it should have been amended or not is irrelevant.
If there is a provision or provisions that are capable of more than one meaning, I understand what you're saying. I will again remind the board that the general rule is so zoning has never existed until recently. Landowners before zoning could do whatever they wanted. As the zoning came on and was something that the law allowed to be applied against someone's land uses, the law has also jealously guarded a landowner's rights to develop and use their land under the general rule that in the event of an ambiguity of a zoning code of ordinance or a land use plan, the law will rule in favor of the land use developer and against the town for any ambiguities. That's the
Grady.
general rule.
Okay, so let's get in. Hope you don't have a problem standing this long.
No, I'm
Need a
good.
chair?
I'm good. No, I'm good. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Going down to points, of course, number one being the critical, was consider increasing single-family lot sizes and larger setbacks. The way I view the revised plan is, yes, there's been movement in that area. I think you said like a net 50 lot changes. But in my mind, insufficient movement in that area. I mean, I'm still not comfortable at all with lots that start with a 5 handle on square feet. And I am not comfortable with any side setbacks less than 7.5 feet. That was recently reviewed, and we specifically, including the part about the eaves, expressly wanted that. So, and I don't 100% buy your answer that it's a open space thing. That to me only applies to the end lot. When you're not an end lot, that side setback is gap between structures. yes, we knew the eaves were included, and that was specifically discussed when we settled on the 7.5 feet. So the 7.5 feet or 15 feet between structure is critical in my mind. Anyone else?
And the other thing too, and forgive me for having studied statistics in college, but I'd be interested to know what the median lot size is here as opposed to the average lot size.
Yeah, we've got that on the. Bear with me. It's going to near the beginning. It's going to take me a minute to get back to it. I think it was 70.
And Sam, while you're doing that, just and I sent you an email while you were presenting, I would like a copy of this PowerPoint sent to me. And I think
Sure.
for the record, we identify this for future use when it goes to council as well.
Yeah.
And you may modify it, of course, but I think for purposes of the record, we'll just go ahead and put that in.
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah,
of
that'd be
course.
great.
So, Mr. Dysoner, as you can see on what we proposed previously, you had a 7,200 square foot average and a 6,670 median. What
Okay.
you have on the current plan is 8,000 average and 7,800 median.
Thank you.
Stewart on this spot? Wait. So far, so good. Okay. On the second point, and I do agree you changed the rear setbacks from 10 to 20, so that was a change that you did incorporate.
Yes, sir.
On number 2, compliance with the UDO height requirements. I believe your maximum height now is 47 on some properties. I do think from scaling your drawing, the MF2 multifamily building is too close to the front. You get the extra foot of height. No, you can go up as you go.
As you go back. Yes,
Right.
sir.
But when I scaled it off, you're not back far enough.
So, to be clear, what we've agreed to in the condition is comply with the UDO with all regards to height, and to the extent more restrictive, we will cap the maximum height for commercial and multifamily at 47 feet. Agree with you 100%. Whatever the UDO says about how far back we must be from the setback in order to incorporate the height, that
Right.
we have to abide by that.
Mr. Chair,
So-
if I may, real quick, if you remember from the last CZ that we did, these are approximate footprints, not accurate. Once we get into subsequent,
Right. So I'm just making the point that
Yeah.
to achieve their 47-foot height,
yes,
particularly in that building where I can sort of scale it, they will comply with the setback distance from the front property line
yes,
in order, which I calculated out needed to be like 46 feet.
yes.
If
In order
Whatever
to
that
get
would
that.
be.
if
yes.
we go to 47 foot on that,
Right, if
that's
you
a
go to
maximum,
46,
not a
exactly.
right. There's no commitment here to have to build to 47 feet. That's a cap.
Just clarifying that if you do go to that, you need to
Yes, sir.
move
Understood.
that. You may need to move that building. Any other questions on height? Number 3, again, sort of a different topic here, affordable workforce housing considerations.
Thank you for bringing that up. I apologize for not mentioning it during our presentation. We considered that. Again, note that this is significant in terms of creating a more affordable across the spectrum opportunity for housing in the town. By delivering multifamily townhome duplex homes in addition to single family homes and an age restricted component, we're incorporating an opportunity for housing to be much more affordable than the single family alone that is available now.
Right.
We considered whether or not to offer any sort of rent restriction component and elected not to do so. I don't think that that is an effective way, nearly as effective as what we're proposing, way to deliver more affordable housing to your workforce, to the firefighters, to the police officers, to the teachers and nurses who work and live or want to live in Sunset Beach.
Okay. Any questions on that? I did notice that our county planning board just imposed a specific number on a recent development for workforce housing. Okay, number 4, this might be for Stuart here. Larger blocks of open space, wildlife habitat, 50-foot open space in all directions. I believe the applicant did say that some of the narrow strips would be removed. And of course, there is the walkway that goes from the commercial area C2 along the, I guess, creek or river, whatever it's called, almost down to Pond 11 near MF3, correct?
So we responded to that note by incorporating larger areas of open space, eliminating the very narrower or the most narrowest of the strips of open space. We did not incorporate a condition to require all open space to be at least 50 foot in every dimension because that's not practically viable. But the end result is better than our design was before, and we're grateful for the note. Areas of open space contribute significantly to the sense of community. We know that. It's good design, and we appreciate you encouraging us to push the envelope a little bit further in that regard.
Stuart?
Well, I appreciate the fact that you incorporated more or removed some of those narrow open space elements. I still wish you would agree with the intent of the code that it be a 50-foot dimension in all directions, or that was clearly an intent of the code. And we're going to do a text change amendment to talk about that and clarify that language. It was kind of an ambiguous language, but it was clearly the intent of the code to have 50 feet in all directions.
And taking your comment to heart, I reviewed the code, and forgive me for giving a lawyerly response here, but I respectfully disagree. That language doesn't strike me as ambiguous at all. It says it needs to be at least 50 feet in a dimension. And I respect that you're changing the law now, or that you want to change the law now. At the time that we applied, we had to design to the code that was in place at that time. And so I think it's an academic point. If you look at the way that we've got the open space on the plan now, I'm not putting a ruler on it or a scale to it, but you can see that those are substantially larger blocks of green on the plan. And, you know, there are examples where you have a trapezoid shape that pinches down less than 50 feet in one location, but you're talking about a very large and an average width of more than 50 feet across that entire dimension. And so, you know, from a design standpoint, it's not realistic for us to rewind and kind of change the parameter that you propose for your new change to the law. But conceptually, we took your comment to heart, and I hope you can see that on the revised plan.
Yeah, and I guess if it's academic, then I think you could go ahead and change your note.
No, if we could, we would. Yeah, if we could, we would. Yeah.
Any other questions on the open space? Number 5, preserve all heritage trees, and yes, they're shown preserved where possible. I guess what I didn't check was that all of them?
Yes, sir, it is.
So all the ones noted in drawing D1, 710 through 711 there?
The condition.
Are all the heritage trees, and they've all been located here, right? Is that correct?
Yes, sir. The condition we've agreed to requires us to use those efforts with regard to every heritage tree on the site. And to be clear, it's more than just try to. You know, we have committed to design the building envelopes, the roads, all of the improvements short of grading, so that the heritage trees will not be disturbed. The only reason there's any cushion in that at all is what I described when we met last month, which is you cannot preserve a heritage tree if you change the grade. You can't raise the grade around the tree or reduce the grade at the tree. And to the extent that there are circumstances on the site that require us to grade to satisfy the state stormwater requirements, we won't have a choice. But for that small carve out, those trees will be saved.
Okay, I guess the way the condition is written, I want to make sure that's in addition to being absolutely subject to the current tree preservation mitigation code in the UDO.
Yes, sir.
In the UDO. It's not in place of.
Correct.
It's in addition to.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else on trees? Stuart?
Could we add a part to your condition saying that the tree preservation area would be a 1 foot per 1 inch caliper?
I'm not
Just
following you, sir. I'm
Kind of
sorry.
standard, if it's a 36-inch tree, then you would preserve a 36-foot radius around the tree.
I believe
And
we
that's-
have something in our code. We'd have to
I
pull
couldn't
it.
find it in the code.
That's to protect the tree. There's
'Cause that's supposedly that's the drip zone or
yeah.
root zone. Is it in the?
If you bear with me,
Yeah.
I can find it.
Let's hold that. We could hold that thought while Chad looks it up. My impression is we have something that addresses the protection area around the tree.
So,
But we can hold that thought and put it back at the end as Chad looks it up to see what,
yeah.
unless you know what it is in the code. Or
So what our engineers advise me is that best practices during construction are to protect the tree to the drip edge. So it's not based on a measurement based on the diameter of the trunk, but rather based on the actual tree canopy. I'm reluctant to incorporate objective mathematical conditions like that without knowing the implications. Let me say that.
Well, the mathematical one could be a minimum, and if the drip edge goes further, but without pulling up our exact language, I'm not sure. There's something I believe there's something in there.
And let me be clear, we are prepared by and understand that we must abide by the code as it provides for tree
But going to
protection.
what Stuart said,
It's not in.
I'd like to review what we have to make sure it's what we want.
Fair enough.
On this protection area.
Is there something unique about our development that would justify changing that aspect of the code for this project?
At the moment, it's just an open question.
Okay.
My
It
concern.
is defined.
What-
It just states that it's to be protected within the critical root zone. There's a section on there about tree protection during construction that's specified in the code.
And what does the critical root, is define the critical root zone in the definitions?
Trying to find this.
It might be in the definitions.
While he's looking, I'll just say that my concern was a couple of these heritage trees, you've got them in islands in the middle of the roads. And I'm just concerned that if we don't look at the whole root zone, that the islands look smaller than I would think the root zone would be. So that's my concern.
Yeah, I mean, that's a level of technical design that we can't reach at this time when we're simply talking about zoning, but rely greatly on your tree ordinance and best practices to protect those roots in the manner that's most appropriate, and understand and respect that we'll comply with both. I'm reluctant to agree to change the law with regard to tree protection for this specific site without having an opportunity to look at each and every individual tree and what our design would be, which is not realistic to do at the zoning level.
Okay. Any additional information? We're going to move on or go back at the end. So
It's up to the board on, however you want to condition or include in your recommendation, denial, et cetera, however you want to address tree protection during construction and as it relates to a condition. That they provided a response to you to that effect.
So the condition, as they stated, now it's out to the diameter of the canopy of the tree. That is technically the drip zone.
So that's what they provided. It's up to you all on your position on the matter.
But there's nothing in the UDO that specifically identifies.
I
it.
am working on looking at it. I need to pull up my computer to do a word search.
Thanks, Wes.
There's also, let me clarify that there are tree protection in different steps of the process. What Mr. Jones is talking about is the ultimate amount of natural land around the trunk of the tree after it's developed. When I made that reference to the drip edge, I'm referring to the area that gets fenced off to protect the tree during the heavy construction process. And so, again, it's this is a very nuanced and detailed concept of law.
But I think what he was going for, if you're putting a road and curbs in, you're doing construction within the drip edge eventually. So I'm not sure that both are compatible.
Well, I don't disagree with you,
You know what I'm
but
saying?
if we're going to rewrite the tree ordinance for this project, we need to look at what we're actually describing. Are we talking about protection during construction? Are we talking about protection post-construction? Are we talking about both? And if we're talking about roots or canopies, how are those things being measured? It's a very nuanced and detailed aspect of your code. And therefore, my reluctance to change the rules for this specific land unless there's a meaningful reason to do so.
Mr. Chair, if I may. So critical root zone is defined in our UDO, and it reads as such. The critical root zone is defined as the ground area around the tree trunk with a radius in feet. That is twice the diameter of the tree in inches measured at breast height.
All right. So is that during construction or is that
Always.
It's during construction.
Always.
It's always, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So
So
could you
a 36-inch tree would require 72 foot. Critical root zone?
I think 72 inches. I think you said twice.
The critical root zone is defined by the ground area measured at the tree trunk within a radius in feet that is twice the diameter of the tree in inches measured at breast height.
There you go.
Okay. Double what I asked for.
Okay.
So we're
I'm good.
talking 72 feet or 70? Okay. And that's diameter rather than radius.
No, that's radius.
That's radius.
So diameter.
Right. So it's, in summary, we have it. It's in the UDO,
It's in the
and they've
UDO.
already agreed to.
I mean,
They
they don't have
agreed in
to
their
agree to
tree
it. They have
protection
to,
mitigation. They're going to follow the UDO.
yeah, but
So-
that they agree to it by following the UDO. Yes.
Right. So if okay. Number 6 was the pollinator garden, and I think there was language that, the way I read it, yes, there will be some, but probably not identified yet. Somewhere in the open space, correct? I got to find your language on
That's
that.
correct. We didn't design a location for it yet. Agreed to a condition that we will include it.
Right. Anything as related to the square footage that's minimum required or needed? Not an expert in this area.
No, me either. But
Okay. Any other questions on that? Number 7 was solar components, and I guess I have seen none.
That's true.
Is that true?
Yes, sir. We evaluated that request and came to the conclusion that it was that we weren't going to offer it. The pressure that puts on our future residents and future home buyers, the expense associated with that and the like is more than we're willing to agree to. Acknowledge that there may very well be solar components to development when it's complete, but we want to allow the people who are buying the homes to make that decision themselves.
Any other questions on?
Well, we're talking about a 6-inch PVC pipe?
yeah.
I don't think that's a big ask. And I don't think as a homeowner who is going to be confronted when they refit to solar, that the cost is going to be in the thousands. I think you're doing them a favor.
I appreciate the suggestion. We may well take it to heart. We're not inclined to include it as a zoning condition.
Okay.
I believe this came up in your presentation, the road stub to the neighbor developments, and it was not possible, correct?
Yes, sir. Do you want me to pull the slide back up on that, or are you?
Well,
clear?
you could. And I
Okay.
guess maybe some further clarification was on the C1 area roads with Ocean Ridge that, if I recall from the previous presentation, maybe I'm remembering wrong, there was some cooperative agreement there.
Yeah, let me make sure I understand what C1 is. Is that
That's a little corner piece.
the residential pocket in the northwest corner?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yes, sir. That's right. That specific area of land has an easement right to utilize the existing roads.
So it's an existing easement from both sides. They have an existing right to use your roads and you have an existing right to use their roads.
Yes, sir.
So in
Unrestricted easement?
Wait a minute. Sorry.
C1, yeah, up in the,
Can I let me get
Yeah.
the image on the screen.
Sam, if it helps, I gave Alan the site plan in a PowerPoint. If you want to pull that up, that will take you away from your
That would-
presentation. But
Okay. Yeah.
Alan, if you want to pull up that site plan presentation that I provided you this morning.
Chairman LeBruno, absolutely a right to utilize the existing neighborhood roads for this pocket of land. I don't know the answer to the second half of your question.
Yes.
Second half of your question is it reciprocal?
You go
Do
to
the people in the existing neighborhood that's not part of this zoning proposal have the right to utilize the roads in that pocket? I don't know why they would. Thankfully, my client's walking back in the door. He'll know the answer. May I?
Sam, if you'll go to
no, Ocean Ridge.
Sam, if you'll go to page 3.
It's fuzzy in my memory, but I'm almost positive the folks that are within our section, they call it section 2D. We have vehicular and pedestrian access on all of Haddington Place's roads. And we also have a reciprocal pedestrian access. I think it's pedestrian and vehicular access. I think it's reciprocal both ways. I'm not 100. Do you remember, Matt? We have a, oh my God.
Sorry, I can't move the screen.
We have a maintenance agreement in place and an easement agreement in place with coastal communities, and I'm almost positive it's duly reciprocal both ways. And one more point to that I'll offer is for the construction of that section 2D from the seller, which is coastal communities, I do have a construction access easement to access that area through the very upper portion of Angel's Trace Road. I'm not going to open up that can yet. I'm sure we'll get to Angel's Trace Road, but for the residents of Haddington Place, the heavy construction traffic will be utilizing a small portion of Angel's Trace Road, so they won't be coming through Haddington Place.
Thank you.
So that concerns the small portion of Angel Trace Phase 1A.
Yes, sir.
In terms of its connectivity. But in terms of the larger volume of homes, there is no connectivity to Old Georgetown Road through the existing Angel Trace and Ocean Ridge Phase Sections 1 and 2.
Not for the homeowners. There is an emergency access in that location. Yeah.
And because obviously the concern is, even though we now have 2 outlets on the 904, absent additional egress via Angel Trace Road, and I understand that's another subject, this would give this population egress to Old Georgetown Road and take pressure off of 904. So that just a complete non-starter, or is that something?
That is a well-negotiated topic that's been answered by the owner of that land.
So the answer is no. Okay.
Beyond our control.
While we're talking about that emergency access connection, I don't see a note on the plans about that emergency access connection. I understood that that's what's going
Sure.
on, but I don't see something. I'd rather see something in the zoning.
It is in the TRC comments from the fire marshal or
I
from the
understand that, but
fire
it's not
department.
in the zoning document.
And can I get some clarification? When we say emergency access, we're talking about emergency vehicles only. So this isn't a potential evacuation plan that somebody
So-
that's not.
Mr. Dysinger, if I may.
Yeah.
So the 2018 fire code requires that a subdivision of more than 100 units have two ingress and egresses.
Right.
So what was negotiated with the one up to Georgetown was in the event of emergency, such as fire
Right.
and blocking off, that would be used as an emergency access, not just for fire and emergency apparatus, but also used as a third ingress and egress for people to get out of the neighborhood as
Okay.
they need to.
Thanks for the
And that is
clarification.
pretty standard practice.
Okay, thanks.
And I'm assuming that the spot we're talking about is Road 28, right, on C4? Is that the location we're looking at, right? Drawing, or sheet C4, where Road 28 comes out and dead ends there, sort of? Is that the access we're talking about, right?
Let me just double check.
Road 25.
Oh, then I'm looking at the wrong place. I'm sorry, my mistake.
So it's where the Ocean Ridge Road comes in and dead ends. Road coming in where it dead ends.
So it's on drawing
So,
C4.
so to
So
the
we're
extent
talking-
that the zoning site plan doesn't depict that gate yet,
Mm.
it needs to be depicted at the time that we go through TRC. We know that. To the extent that you're suggesting that we incorporate that into the zoning site plan, don't have any objection to doing so. I acknowledge that we're out of time. We're not in a position here where we can revise the plan for your consideration again. But we certainly can supplement the plan before
Okay.
it's considered
So
by the council.
for clarity's sake, because
Yeah.
so we're talking about the location where Road 25,
Oh, gosh.
I'm drawing C4, correct, goes, and there's a little kind of road showing there out to the edge. Is that this location we're talking about, correct?
Mr. Chairman, do you mind if I take a step forward and look at the map that you're looking at? I'm going to ask the engineer real quick, but I believe that's.
Yep.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, you understand correctly.
Okay. Okay, so to summarize at number 8 where we're at, there was no other interconnectability available for natural reasons, if I remember correctly. But there will be that gate emergency access that we just defined there at road, lost my page on 25.
Yes, sir. And our design does include a stub to Angels Trace Road, which we have hopes will be effective in the future.
Yeah. Now, does this also concern, this is the one that I raised, you know, part of what mixed-use development is supposed to do is to provide egress into commercial properties absent going on a main road. And it appears that while the pedestrian walkway, now is that going to include a bicycle path or no?
Multi-use between the commercial and the residential within the community? Yes.
So there will be a segregated bicycle lane, or is it just going to be one?
Likely to be a multi-use path designed for both pedestrian and bicycle use. Sure.
Okay. Yeah, but okay, we're getting into the weeds here, but there's no possibility of providing egress into that commercial property via
vehicular.
It
would require significant wetlands disruption that we can't justify.
Yeah, you're getting the pedestrian pathway through there. I'm concerned. I mean, if there's wetland issues, why isn't it affecting the pedestrian pathway?
Let me invite our civil engineer, Matt Haley,
All right,
to
thanks.
respond to your question.
Welcome, Matt.
Hey, good morning. As we discussed, at the very first planning board meeting, a large portion of this project was previously developed as a golf course.
Right.
And the intent with the pedestrian walkway is to utilize the existing cart path crossings and, breaks within those wetland areas, which are fairly narrow, to accommodate the meandering of the walkway path.
So
Those
this is
existing-
damage to the wetlands
those
that's already been
those
done.
existing crossings aren't of sufficient width to build a roadway for vehicular connection.
So it would require the absorption of additional wetland. area.
Wetlands or stream crossings, yes.
Okay. Now, while we're on that subject,
Sure.
What was the thinking behind not possibly taking this area that was formerly going to be rezoned commercial for a storage locker and just saying, let's rezone that commercial in the same vein as the area at the junction of Old Georgetown Road and 904? Because there you would have the ability to provide road access to those commercial properties.
I'm sorry.
So I'm talking about the area in C6 that was formerly a storage locker and has now been built to rent multifamily.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. How would zoning to a different category change the nature of the access?
Well, the nature of the access is there's a road there.
Yes, sir.
So if I live in C5 and I want to go to the store that's been built in the what is now described as a multifamily home, 17.1 acres, I can get in my car and drive there, and I don't have to go on 904. So I'm suggesting a different, and maybe this is out of stream with what we are discussing here, but
Yeah, we'll take that up on number 14 again.
okay, all right, let's go. Let's keep going then.
Okay.
Sidewalks.
Yeah,
Sidewalks are on one side, which
in certain locations, yeah, we incorporated sidewalks on both sides of the road, on the main spine road, and then incorporated sidewalks on one side of the road for the remainder of the roads.
Section 3.33 of the code, looking at your notes, you don't comply yet with the thickness requirements for the concrete? Well, maybe you do and don't. Because you're saying 4-inch minimum, where we say 5-inch, I believe 6-inch where a driveway is. Is that just an oversight on the note here, or?
No, that's a deliberate spec incorporated into the zoning site plan.
So,
Frankly, the 5-inch and 6-inch spec, based on our analysis and from our engineers, is excessive.
so it's 5, you're going 5 inches throughout, and so I guess the contention is not the 6 inches where a driveway is, would be the difference, I believe.
Correct.
So, Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure you understand that the sidewalks are required on both sides. Streets, all the streets, for section 4.11A, but they're choosing to only do it on one side.
In certain locations.
Because they're a subdivision more than 50.
Everybody understand that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, number 10 is not for us, I guess.
Yeah.
That's just a matter of law.
What was that, sir?
If you're in the city, if you're in town, the roads will be public. So
That's correct, but we incorporated a condition all the same, responsive to your comment, acknowledging that and agreeing that when the land is annexed, the roads will be offered to the city,
Well,
to the town.
before we jump off of that, there's some kind of disconnect. Maybe it's just me, but you still have a note on the plan saying all roads are intended to be private,
Okay.
which goes against
Mhm.
your annexation.
Yeah, at the
condition.
time they're built, they'll be private. At the time we annex, they'll become public. If you would prefer that we adapt that note to acknowledge that future dedication, certainly glad to do so.
I think it needs to. And I guess part of it is I don't understand that, all the streets if you're annexed, all the streets are going to be public. They'll have to be built to town standards, which then relies on DOT standards. So again, that's all, excuse me, it's all public street standards. And keep going back to this, but the geometric design of the project doesn't meet DOT standards. So I don't know when the project was laid out, if you intended for all the streets to be private, and now you're proposing annexation, so now they're all going to be public, but they don't, the layout doesn't meet public street standards.
So-
Need the engineer to address that? Or?
Well,
Let me
part of
answer
this-
briefly, and then I'll invite.
let me ask one
Sure.
one last thing.
Okay.
Is that this has changed somewhat. So when they submitted this project, there wasn't annexation on the table. And that we had this note about all the streets were going to be private. And I think that was the intention initially. Now it's all changed. The town does not have a staff member who's an engineer. And so we don't have anyone to review, these streets. I'm just basing this on my 35 years of experience as a professional engineer. But now you've added a note, number 8 under roadways, that says roadway geometry, including but not limited to intersection alignment, curvature, block length, and orientation as shown on plans. Does that mean that whatever's shown on this plan that's it? You're not going to make any changes?
Come on up, Matt. May I invite our civil engineer to respond to you, Ms. Haley.
Great, thanks.
We're here today talking about zoning. There's a lot of additional analysis, engineering effort, surveying effort to develop a plan to submit a preliminary plat. It's going to go back through a technical review committee. We know that we have to meet certain DOT requirements for curvature and design speeds and vertical curves and sight distances and all those things to make sure that these are safe, well thought out roads. It's very likely that there may be some tweaks and adjustments to some of the curvature and those elements as we work through the preliminary plat stage. So in terms of that note, I mean that may be something that just would come off the plan and really be better addressed at a preliminary plat review level.
May I make a suggestion so we can move on? They're right. You're right. It's not worth anything if they make an offer to turn them over to dedicate the roads if the roads are not capable of being dedicated after being built. I think if you ask the applicant to agree on the record that they will agree upon the conditional rezoning, when they start going through preliminary plat plans, they will agree that they will build and construct roads that will satisfy the standards by which to become dedicated public roads upon annexation. Because that's what Mr. Haley just said is when we get to the preliminary plat phase, we're going to start tweaking these and making sure that we satisfy the applicable standards. Only standard you care about and that I care about is that it's capable of being accepted as a dedicated road. There's an offer. You got to be able to accept it. To be able to accept it, it's got to meet certain standards by which to do so to be a public road.
Right. I guess one of my concerns is that, this is a zoning document. And if it's got things that are not correct on it, should we be recommending that for approval to town council, or should this document be as correct as we can get it before it goes to council? They're required to show a layout.
Right. I think it's a rough layout, but I think that on the record they're agreeing to certain conditions. And I think if you say in that condition that before any roads are constructed, those roads are going to be constructed in such a way that they will be capable of being accepted at the time that they're offered for dedication, that would satisfy your concerns there, because the zoning the use is one thing, pulling permits and building it is another thing, and they have to meet the technical specs for building it at that point in time.
Well, and this is an area where I've been somewhat confused. And as the byproduct of conditional zoning, rezoning approval, should the town then, based on a recommendation, which we may or may not give today, approve it, the next step is for a preliminary plat to be submitted to the planning board before construction can begin.
Yes. Yeah, that's what and I was getting ready to get to that. Think of this as hopefully I'm using the word right, Sam, conceptual when it comes to what they're asking for as far as a zoning approval. That's what they're seeking for. They're seeking for zoning approval to move forward with subsequent submittals, such as a site development plan or a preliminary plat. Preliminary plat and major or minor site development plan will get more detailed. I did have a conversation with the fire chief yesterday, along with Mr. Jones. When you get into the preliminary plat, you more get into the detail how wide the roads are, where exactly the pinpointing down where the sidewalks are going to be, looking at curvature, as Mr. Haley said. Can a fire truck or bus or a apparatus get around those curves safely, along with supporting those heavy apparatuses such as a fire truck and or a school bus.
Yeah, I guess my concern.
I guess the question I think that I hear it is we have notes or something on this document.
So
that if somebody approves this document for zoning,
so you can
that all the road requirements kind of will overrule the notes. I think that you have notes here that if followed or if brought to an end saying, well, you approved this with this note, that we want something in the condition saying, no, if the rules require something that conflicts with your notes, the rules overrule the notes. It's a primacy thing on what's, I mean, because
the standards are still the same whether they're private or public. However, with the adopt the roads to be private or public, put that in there. Depending on the outcome of this, if it's annexed, then they become public. If they're not annexed, they stay as private. That type thing. I think their attorney alluded to that as well, of being okay with private or public.
Mr. Chair, if I may, the public streets are always required unless you're in the ETJ. That's a rule of the town. Now, but just to simplify this, I think that the board would want to include, sounds to me like a statement that all streets be designed subject to the UDO requirements, which stipulate they have to be NCDOT minimum, et cetera. And that would clear all this up.
I believe so.
Okay.
That's what I was leading.
Yep.
Right. Yes.
What road standards apply to the design today in the ETJ?
Same.
I guess my concern is that when we get to a preliminary plat stage, we've basically decided that this is going to go forward. And if there are aspects of these road issues that impact design, that's kind of a fine line. I'm not sure where it is. But if they were to impact our ability to make a zoning decision, I think they're relevant. But my guess is that this is something that will be decided down the line after we recommend or don't recommend. Is that a fair summary of where we're going with this?
The conditional zoning lays out the entitlement framework. And so, that grants them permission to come in with a subdivision plat that meets the terms of this minimum lot size, streets are constructed to X, spec, etc. And that's correct. When they come in with a subdivision plat that does comply with the requirements of the conditional zoning approval, the town is obligated to approve it. Yes, sir. And so from that standpoint, layout, I guess where the roads are is perhaps a discretionary aspect of this. However, the construction standards, you guys can include that statement that I mentioned prior about them being constructed to the minimum standards of the UDO.
Okay. Are we happy with that?
I am.
Okay. Stuart? Okay.
Yeah. Which one do we have? Number 11 was the stormwater design plan, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're designing now for the 50-year rain event.
Correct.
And looked at and declined to go higher.
We're at 25, all of a sudden we're 50.
Yeah, I mean, we
That's
looked at
pretty good.
doubling it and
Yeah.
satisfied ourselves that we could and feel that ought to be more than sufficient.
The county's going to 100 on some of these,
Hasn't been approved yet.
but they're imposing them on their conditions as 100. Okay, so we know where we're at. I think this number 12 might have been mine. The trip generator analysis for the TIS or TIA, whatever you want to call it. Was that not in the packet, or?
We don't have data yet there. We acknowledge that we will ultimately have to not only complete that, but we are certain that this will generate more than 100 trips per peak hour, and therefore we'll be compelled to do a full TIA and satisfy the DOT when we get to that point.
So you, well, we don't have a trip generation analysis, but you're stating that you anticipate it'd be more than 3,000 trips today?
No, the threshold for the DOT requiring a full TIA is if you have more than 100 trips per peak hour, and have every expectation that with the commercial uses and the like, we'll have
3,000 trips per day.
Not necessarily. The peak hour is the highest hour, so I don't know whether they've got a threshold requirement at number per day. I think
so.
they
You
do
haven't
based on peak.
completed their worksheet yet for the state.
Correct. I don't have accurate data for a trip generation analysis today, but I do understand enough, common sense, understand enough to know that we're going to be in front of the DOT on that.
Well, this is another situation which comes first. That data is, one of the issues, critical issues, is the density of this. So
Right.
that traffic data is pretty critical to understanding what the impact's going to be. Should we go ahead and increase the number of homes in this area by?
Right. Well, I believe that's the reason why we asked for the trip generation analysis, was to get a feel for, even though knowing quite clearly that they at this moment do not need to complete the complete traffic analysis until later. I
Right.
thought we had discussed that we would at least get the generation analysis, so we would get a feel for, which my understanding is the somewhat simplest part of the program, where you're not getting into impacts on intersections of the road, where you're not looking at level of service on these roads and intersections, and then you're not looking at mitigation yet. It's just how many trips at either per day and per the 2 peak AM and PM hours that this development will sort of spit out. But
Yeah.
apparently we don't have that information. So
Right, and I'm reluctant to, I think the biggest issue here is the increase in household numbers, and that means the increase in household cars. And absent understanding, and we've already bid off 1,041 homes in the previous approval back from November 22. That to me is a critical decision point. Absent that data, it's
Right.
pretty difficult to go, well,
it's
is this
no doubt not
manageable or
linear, but we're 1,630 over 1,030.
May I
Is it 60% increase of trips? We don't know.
Yeah.
Certainly.
ask two questions for my own edification? As of right, you would probably still be generating more than 100 trips per peak hour and would need a TGA, correct?
TIA, yes, sir.
Okay. So you're going to have that irrespective of whether the conditional zoning gets approved or not. If you were to go back and slide back because it doesn't get rezoned, you're still going to have to do a TIA for the by
Yes.
right.
That's correct.
And when is a typical TIA required? If they weren't doing a conditional zoning today and they're just going in, to borrow Mr. Frank's term previously, of land hungry development as of right, when would the TIA typically be required?
For final plat.
Before we get our driveway permit from the DOT. So
well down the road, not at this point.
yes, sir. And to be clear, the purpose of the TIA is not so the DOT can say yes or no to building homes. Purpose of the TIA is so that the DOT can say, here are the improvements that you, private landowner, must make to the public roads in
But-
connection with
Yeah,
this
and
program.
But first of all, this is an evolving area with us in the county. Okay, so, and certainly an area of concern for the citizens of Sunset Beach and the neighbors. And we discussed getting the information at the last meeting, and we don't have it. So if we had it, maybe it wouldn't be a moot point at this time, but we just don't have it.
I understand. And I certainly respect
And
that.
and this is a legislative procedure. So for us to recommend passing this legislation, we need to be in good conscience that we've looked at all the information.
And I respect completely that your recommendation today might include a requirement or a suggestion that the council consider this rezoning in connection with a trip generation analysis or the like.
But our plan was to have it today to consider, and we don't have it to consider.
I understand.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, you may be able to ask the engineer that's here what the typical trip generation count is per single family based on the ITE manual. I'm guessing he may know that information or want to provide it.
He's not the traffic engineer, so
Yeah.
we just don't have it.
Okay.
Number 13 was again an evolving area. The UDO light standards. Staff will email UDO draft language to applicant. They have agreement on that.
They've made an agreement on their condition
We
to,
have.
with the lighting plan.
We acknowledge the law is changing and we are willing to abide by the UDO that's in place at the time you approve the rezoning with regard to the lighting standards.
Okay. We sort of touched on number 14 earlier.
Yeah, I'd like to.
You want
I'd like to touch on it again,
right?
Because I'm not sure.
This is the self-storage. So we've basically, to make sure we understand, we in what you're now calling MF3 originally was, I guess, C commercial 1, maybe. I got to go back to the old plan. It had a different letter designation before.
It's
Was it
okay.
C1?
I understand the area. of the
And
plan
then
you're referring
changed
to.
it now MF2. So, and what's the note there is build to rent multifamily homes, MF3, 80 units, et cetera, et cetera. And again, as I pointed out earlier, because it's multifamily, for conditional zone, we do require the approximate footprints,
Okay.
which have not, as far as I can tell, have not, unless there's a new revision to drawing C6, I guess. No, that has not been provided as of yet. I guess the question is it forthcoming?
Sounds like it needs to be.
Right.
With
Yeah.
with due respect, Mr. Chairman, please understand we did this quickly. You know, in the month since we
Okay.
met with you last, we had to get revised plans in front of your staff within about 2 weeks.
Right.
Your direction to us was we really don't like self-storage. When we asked what you'd like to see there instead, I understood the answer to be anything except self-storage.
Well,
and
I don't
so-
think that's what if we did say that, I think we meant other commercial uses other than self-storage. I'd have to pull the minutes or the look at. I'm a little surprised the switch from, well, if we miscommunicated, let me clear up the communications. We were not, and someone else on the board stop me if I'm misspeaking, we were not objectional to a commercial use fronting the road there. But we were objectionable to the use being self-storage. So we're a little thrown for a loop on this whole thing, is that it went from a non-residential use to a residential use and then multifamily residential use. And I think that's not the target. That's not the target we were hoping to see on the resubmittal. Now, whether,
Well,
and I don't know how to, I mean,
may I respond?
go ahead.
Okay. First, with regard to the footprint for the buildings, we need to supplement the plan between now and when council considers it. I appreciate your note. We didn't get that done in the short period of time that was available, that we will. with regard to the nature of the use, we thought we were taking your note to heart. It was our intent to take your note to heart. We believe that's a good alternative use for that site. It's immediately adjacent to the other multifamily uses on the development. It's consistent with a large portion of the remainder of the property in the development. And it's something that we know how to do effectively, and we know that the town and the county needs. And so obviously we're proposing something we
So
believe
either
is
we miscommunicated.
desirable.
I expected a different commercial use there.
Yeah,
Or
and I-
non-residential use there, whether it be straight
Fair enough.
non-residential or residential mixed use. This property could be split. We don't have to have one use on a property. We could divide a property up at this process. So I guess I was really expecting something not what's on here.
Yeah. And I think the multifamily, I mean, again, because one of the big concerns here is the number of new households. So if we were to convert that to a commercial application, right away, 80 new households are removed from the inventory and are replaced where I think there is a town need. We need more commercial development. I think that 904 corridor, just on the other side of your development, we have a commercial plat that remains undeveloped. And obviously there's the shopping center there that's has some restaurants and other things there. And I think there's an opportunity to provide not only some commercial inventory there that would be accessible by road, would be accessible to the multifamily households that neighbor it. So yeah, this was definitely a surprise. So, I mean, my suggestion would be to abandon the multifamily designation and rethink this as a potential opportunity for commercial development.
If I may.
Yes. Consider this discussion.
Fair to say that we're surprised by your response. We understood no self-storage, anything else would be better. We had some conversation at the last meeting about other potential uses and didn't really get any traction on any of them that I felt like I heard any sort of, yeah, that'd be great. And so we responded in a way that we thought was responsive to your comment. Certainly hear what you're saying now, understand what you're saying now, but please understand our intention in revising the plan was because to do what we believe was exactly what you asked us to do.
Well, I guess to be more clear,
I hear you.
the 80 additional multifamily is not favorable in my eyes. The rest of the board can comment. I preferred the commercial or non-residential, certainly on the frontage. And considering we lost open space, I sure would have liked to see reserved open space with the walkway going around that pond to be included in the part of that parcel, somewhat in the back half of it or back 2/3 of it, that would be now part of the open space with the commercial non-residential on the frontage to the road. But
may I invite my client to speak to you
your
briefly?
client can speak as much as he would like to.
Mr. Chair, I appreciate the collaborative discussion effort, so I'd like to speak to that. Mr. Dysinger, you had mentioned there was a commercial piece across the street as well, and it's been there and been zoned in that manner. I don't know for how long, but it's obviously still vacant for a reason. So from a discussion collaboration standpoint, we're certainly open to hear any suggestions, but that commercial land is still vacant for a reason. Partially because that's, I think it's 45 or 50 mile an hour road there. That's not typically conducive to, retail,
45.
whatever, a nail salon, whatever it may be, because the traffic's flowing too fast. And I'm no land planner, but to me, it just doesn't make feasible sense to put a strip center or something like that on an area where you've got pass through traffic. On an intersection like 904 in Georgetown, certainly.
You have road 1 there.
Yeah.
So you're already inclining people. They're going to have to decelerate and turn. Your entrance to that could be okay. Go ahead. But I think that's a design fixable issue.
Element.
Well, what would you say when I say intersection? I mean like a 904 and a Beach Road intersection where you have
right. So you already have them turning into road 1.
Correct, but is 1,500 homes, 1,600 homes enough to support a Carrabba's for the entire year? or a nail salon or whatever it may be. What I'm suggesting is
Right.
the traffic that flows to and from, the majority of traffic on 904 is pass through traffic. It's not a destination zone where they're stopping it to shop at Lowe's or whatever it may be and says, oh, let me grab lunch while I'm here. We've built several mixed use
Well, that's what,
communities in the past, but they have been utter
but that's
failures.
sort of like Richard
in-
was going for, because this one can be accessed from the community by road and also walkway, which is good.
Because the commercial development you're suggesting now requires that somebody come out on that road 45 miles an hour to access it, which to me, I mean, I've been a big proponent of mixed-use development. Historically, the way developments have worked in this country is we build a lot of residential over here, we build a lot of commercial over here. Everybody has a car, they get on their roads, they go to the commercial development. That can't work anymore. You've got to give people the opportunity to walk, bicycle, or get in their car, particularly in this area, because 904 is not going to be improved for another decade. Anything we can do to keep traffic off of 904, we should be doing, which is why Angel Trace Road is so important, and which is why I disagree. I've talked to some of the commercial vendors in that area, and I said, I'm going to offer you a commercial location within Sea Trail, within a 1600 community. A bagel docks or a coffee shop, they would jump at it, okay? Because they need people to come to the, and right now, for me to go get a bagel, I got to get on 904. I got to get on Old Georgetown Road. If I could walk to, okay, I'd be a customer 2 or 3 times a week. Now, is that the scale of a restaurant like you suggested?
Bravo, whatever it may be.
Right. No. But and the example that we had in Sea Trail, which thrived, was a restaurant called House's Place. Sat right in the middle of the community development. Did great. We need more of those, and I think this is an opportunity to do that based on the fact that here's a small area. Somebody could drive, walk, bicycle, go get a bagel, go get a cup of coffee. My God, go to a dry cleaner.
May I interject?
Okay.
May I, please? I mean, you either are going to like what they've submitted or you're not. Unless they're going to sit here on the record and change on the fly a concept that they're willing to change to appease you today to get a recommendation for council approval later, fish or cut bait. They thought you said, and I've got it in my notes, self-storage is a non-starter.
Right.
Anything else, they went and took that as more multifamily. That works for their business plan. If you don't like that and they're unwilling to change it, let's move on so that we can get to a recommendation of up or down or a hybrid of that so that council can pass on this ultimately.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. Number 15 concerns annexation, which has been answered. So it, to me, not an issue for the planning board to look at. Number 16, the tree burning. Obviously, you'll have to have a state permit or county state permit, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. And you've added some stipulation of a 500-foot clearance.
Yes, sir. Which is 10 times what your local ordinance requires.
Which is a par 3, 166 yards.
I think, we've experienced burns in this area, and it just has such a deleterious impact. I mean, this is an elderly community, and there are a lot of people here that are COPD, asthmatics, and I certainly appreciate it. Other neighboring developers have made the commitment in the developments that they're working on that they would not do a burn. I don't think it's an unreasonable ask.
How'd you come up with the 500 number?
We looked at realistically how we would manage the site during that aspect of construction, and what
Because
we
it seems large enough to have gotten a higher number than that. Just looking at the site plan.
I mean, respectfully, sir, your code addresses this. It doesn't say that you can't burn. Your code allows it. It allows it within 50 feet. We're offering 500. We're offering a substantially higher number. I don't know.
And the burn formula would be the same for your as of right versus as it would be for the conditional zoning. It's still the 10 feet. You're offering 100 times, 500 times that. Is that what you're?
It's 50, and
50
we're
feet, so
offering
you're offering
500.
10 times that amount. I'm saying the burning requirements are the same for the as of right as they would be for the conditional zoning. You still got to clear out the land for either one of them.
Correct, but with the conditional zoning, in addition to complying with your code, we would also agree to keep any burn piles at least 500 feet away from an occupied structure.
Okay.
It does, I will note this because I have experience in other jurisdictions of burning permits. There's two state level permits with this. They got to get an air quality permit from the state and another burning permit from the state as well. So it's not just our ordinance that goes into this.
No, I
There are
understand.
state level approvals for this as well.
Okay. Number 17 was interconnectivity of roads from out. I think we talked about that already, right? So we're settled on roads with some additional language on
Yes, sir.
DOT. And number 18 was a reduction in overall units, and between the minuses and the pluses, we came up with, you're at 1630 now, is that correct?
An absolute cap of 1,630 homes. That's right.
What's shown on the plans? A little bit less?
No, the nature of the plans is for different types of house use, we have an up to a certain number. And so if you maximized all the numbers for the up to for single family townhome, duplex, and multifamily, you'd come up with something that was bigger than 1,630. We're saying in addition to what's shown on the plan, we will accept an overall cap of 1,630 for all homes.
The site plan adds up to, I think, 1,760, and they're capping it at 1,680.
1630.
1,630 we're capping.
1630, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, and the point is to afford a little bit of flexibility as we work out the details of the construction drawings and the like, to deliver houses under that number for each category and under that total number in total.
Okay. Any other questions from the applicant? Jerry? I'm good. Stuart?
See if all my stuff got covered. Angels Club Drive. I understand from your note that you're not going to connect that through to the rest of the project. So
It's not within our power to do so. We hope that.
Angels
No,
Club
the club,
Drive.
the one
Is that in the existing?
next to the
It's
church.
next to the church.
Gotcha. Matt, maybe you can speak to that. There is a meandering connection, but I don't think it's a direct connection. Is that right?
Yeah, so the road that goes by the church currently, extends into Ocean Ridge. The current plan would leave that driveway on 904, provide access to the church and to the age-restricted apartments, and a secondary connection to the proposed multifamily area 1, but that it would terminate and not extend into the rest of the subdivision.
Right, because you have the walkway there in front of it.
Yes, there would be, the trail would, meander there where the road currently crosses. Yes.
Is there some wetland inhibition there, or is there some reason why
The
that
creek
wouldn't be
or-
connected?
There's a creek there.
I'm sorry, say it again.
There's a creek there, but
Oh.
the crossing was already in.
Crossing's already there.
Yeah.
And I think it was a strategic decision, just looking at, the community, and not having those vehicles, requiring daily, in and out access, there by the church, by the senior apartments, to sort of segregate the traffic between those differing uses.
Well, on the phase plan, the Angels Club Drive is shown connected over to Road 25.
Yeah, so that's probably just a layering issue. There is an existing road that's been surveyed that's depicted, but the intention would be that the road that's existing up to the crossing would remain, and then the road that's on the balance of the residential property would be removed and realigned, per the plan.
Could we not make that old existing road into a walkway, pedestrian walkway?
I mean, being that area is already cleared and partially graded, it's likely that, we would try to piggyback on that alignment with the multi-use trail where it made sense. But we're not in the level of design to know exactly the route of that walking trail. We know that we want to get from, you know, the southern end of the community through the community up to the north side. But yeah, if there's an existing cleared area with existing, you know, crossings of the Blue Line stream, we certainly would want to, you know, utilize those.
Again, that gets the seniors over into the neighborhood. And if there's pickleball court at the amenity center, then the seniors might want to go over there and play pickleball. And right now they have to get in the car and go drive around. So, and again, people out of the neighborhood could then walk to church. So it's not much of a.
We appreciate the suggestion. We can't redesign the plan on the fly from the
Right.
dais, but appreciate your suggestion. Thank you.
That's all I had for questions.
Richard?
No, I'm good.
So, thank you. Thank you very much.
If you don't have further questions of us, may I say one thing in closing?
Sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Diversity of housing and density are not the enemy. They're often treated as if they are. The language that's in your comp plan, both objective, straight, and strategic, explicitly contemplates a desire to have a variety of housing types in this specific area of the town. It also contemplates that that's going to come with a greater density. The way that we've designed this plan and delivered it is responsive to that plan, but it's also responsive to what we believe is the best use of this land to serve the needs of future and current residents of the community. A density of 4.1 units per acre residential is not terribly high. Yes, it's higher than what's currently approved by right in a subtle fashion, but it's substantially lower than what you contemplated when you last approved a future land use plan. We believe that the design that we've put forward is much better than what's currently approved by right today. We believe that being a part of the town of Sunset Beach with this improved plan versus the by right plan in the ETJ is a better situation, not only for the landowner, but for the town. Thank you for considering this.
Yep. So the question before us. Let me get to the. Yeah. Sorry for the delay. So the question before us, we have basically three actions that we can take. Action A, which is recommending approval to the council. And action B, which recommends denial to the council. And action C, which I guess could have splits the baby, we're making no recommendation, which I like the least, but that's also. So we have three choices, and I just wanted to read to the board to make sure we all understand what our task is. I'm looking at the conditional zoning section 2.7 B9. When evaluating an application for the creation of a conditional zoning district, the planning board and council shall consider the following. A, the applicant's consistency to the general policies and objectives of the town comprehensive land use plan, any other officially adopted plans that is applicable, and the unified development ordinance. B, the potential impacts and/or benefits on the surrounding areas, adjoining properties, and C, the report of results from the public input meeting. So that's how we consider. So we'll eventually need a motion to pick one, but I guess I would like
No,
to
I
poll
think,
the board to see
yeah.
which action.
Let me go through. I sat here patiently,
as you always do.
As you know, the things with this project, I really didn't like from the beginning was the amount of total units from 1,040 up to 1,740. But I see that you have come back down a little to 1630, which, okay, it's a step in the right direction. I think we spent, I don't know how many days working with C-Trail in the back and forth that we had with them to come to some type of conclusion, which was favorable. So I do applaud some of the activity that we had. Still not thrilled about the minimum lot size or the setbacks. Tree burning, windy conditions. If you're a golfer, you have anything over 5 miles an hour, wind is going to blow the smoke, but that's not here nor there. Not thrilled with the traffic. But the things that I do like is the UDO as it pertains to the density, overall density, which you've met, and the open space requirements, which you've met, which is good. The annexation of the property to the town is both beneficial to the homeowner, if I'm correct there, and as well as Sunset Beach. So that's a positive for me. The variety of housing that you've done, I think, is spot on. Something that I think that the master plan is calling for. So I do agree there. Preserving the heritage trees, you hit that one for me. Certain areas to be maintained in natural condition, I think they've met that bar for me. The proposed commercial, maybe some more added commercial based on what's next to the, if you decide to go that way, next to the church, that was a plus. One of the big things to meet the 50-year storm, which I think is a step up. I think it's really, really important that we protect those homeowners as well as the town. The 30-foot buffer goes far beyond what is required. And we're getting a good recommendation from the state, which I do believe that they are recommending this, which I am in line with to do at this time. So me, not to be the lone wolf right here, maybe, that I do recommend that we submit this application forward to the town council.
Okay, thank you. Stuart or Richard?
Well, I am intrigued and think some of the accommodations that have been made are positive. What this comes down to for me is we did go through a rigorous process in the previous conditional rezoning request. And one of the important elements to me of this is what I would refer to as community sentiment and how it affects surrounding property owners. And in the incident that we had before, I think it was pretty evenly split, maybe 60-44. This thing has been in the air since January. I've probably had 100 conversations either via social media, over the fence, private emails, and I don't have a single local resident that's come to me and said, I think this is a good idea. To counter that, this land is going to be developed at some point. To suggest that, between 2010 and 2020, this country built fewer homes than at any point in its history since 1950. There's a demand out there, no question. And I think Logan Homes is trying to meet that demand. If I was their marketing director, I'd say, yeah, you're spot on. But when I weigh that against community sentiment, I have to weigh in favor of community sentiment. Market includes the people that live here. And the people that live here look at this and say, this is too much. There's a lot of good ideas in here, but 1,600 units in addition to this parcel is more than I can support. So I would recommend not recommending this to the town council, and that's what I would do.
So I do applaud the applicant for making some changes. I appreciate the change in the open space. And I do like the mix of uses. Not real sure about the new one that came in, but I guess I'm a little bit on the fence. I'm still concerned about the environment. I feel like we didn't do enough environmentally one of our charges is to, from the land use plan, is to consider the capacity of the environment. And I just don't feel like we've got enough open space. I don't feel like we've got enough trails, parks. I don't see any parks other than the one amenity center. So I'm concerned about the impact on the environment. I do like the mix of uses, but the density is what's driving that. In my mind, the balance between the capacity of the environment and what we could allow. So I'm kind of on the fence, but I'm kind of on the.
Thank you. So for me, I agree. There's been some movement in what I would say was positive direction, but I don't think you're there yet. In my mind, I can't in good conscience send this to the council with a recommendation for approval. I mean, some particular areas of concern are still the lot sizes. I'm not favorable to 5,000 or lots that start with a 5 handle, lots that start with a width with a 4, and the setbacks clearly. The 7.5 foot side setback, in my mind, is a must. I mean, putting houses that close together are city suburban lots, not Sunset Beach lots. So, I mean, I went through with my highlighter and highlighted all where the I mean, yes, there are less 5,000 square foot lots in here than there was, mostly in the areas where the extra 10 feet to the back got you above it. But as far as lot width goes, those 42-foot lots are just too close, too bunched together for what we would like to see here.
Can I?
Wait, let me
Go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And unfortunately, the MF3 C1 or whatever it was, the MF3 changes, I would view as a negative. That pulled you from where you were, I think, in the wrong direction. I think some more creativity and just throw some multifamily buildings up there was required, whether a mixed use, splitting the property in half, you non-residential in the front and something different in the back, maybe. But I was really expecting some more creativity of that and didn't get it. So a lot of these things are small details that I think could be worked out in the language of the conditions, but the overall plan is still too many residences too close together that I can't, at this point, recommend to the council that they take it. Obviously, they're going to get it no matter what. But and in my mind, unfortunately, the annexation thing is, I guess, not material in my decision here. That's something for the council to decision. We have to just decide on the 3 points that I read, and I don't think revenue and taxes we have anything to do with. That's for them to look at.
Correct. So I mean,
so the choice here is we got 3 choices, and I guess maybe I'll need guidance on how to do this. Do we need a motion on each of them? Do we need a motion on one, or
you would need a motion to recommend approval, or a motion to recommend denial, or a motion to neither recommend or deny.
Someone just needs to make a motion of one of those 3 options.
You guys. The motion.
Well, I guess, the unfortunate aspect of this conditional rezoning process is the planning board has 60 days. Okay. And we've used up 30 of them. In a perfect world, given what we've learned from each other, if the applicant wants to take in what we have suggested in terms of density and come back to us within the 60-day limit, that's something that we could consider. The best outcome of this would be that the development by right that sits here, this proposal would improve on. I don't think we're there yet, so that's why I can't recommend it. Do I think you have the ability to improve this? Yeah, I do. I think there's a lot of good ideas in here. The things that need to be removed that has been the consistent sentiment of the community is the number of units, the density, the traffic impact, and if those major issues could be dealt with. If you come back and say, okay, we can do this and build 1,040 units as was originally planned, okay, we can create some different, because I think the aspect of creating some townhomes in this inventory is a good idea, but get us back to a spitting distance of 1,040 homes in this area. If that's a non-starter, then we can have a motion to deny recommendation, but I would like to give the applicant the opportunity to say, okay, do we want to take another 30 days to come back and resubmit at a plan? I mean, Ron, you're the leader here. Is that a because if this gets disapproved, a conditional zoning request can't be resubmitted for a year. Okay.
So before we go down that,
am I correct in that, Grady?
path, what is the time frame we're actually talking about here?
So
Is it 60 days from application?
First
or is it-
meeting,
First meeting.
first
Okay.
meeting,
the first
So-
hearing that we had here.
60 days is April 15th.
Okay. And what has to happen within those 60 days? A recommendation from the planning board?
We have
on
to
it?
vote on those three options.
Yes.
Yeah. And if there is no action within the 60 days, then it moves forward to council without,
Yeah. The
Without a
council,
recommendation,
the council
one way
can
or another.
ultimately pull it up at their discretion. Yes.
We would have, we could have a special meeting. We would have a meeting, our next regular meeting is on what day?
Next
21st.
Next week. Well, that's obviously not
have to-
realistic.
That wouldn't be enough time for them to do anything
Other than to.
we would have to call, I'm willing to call another special meeting if there's any benefit for it, from both sides. But if the applicant feels there's no further benefit, we can take the vote today. I could be had either way.
so this is it's a challenging position for us.
You want to think about it for a while?
No, I
We
want to
could
talk
take
just
a
for a
small,
second.
short recess.
Yeah, I know, I appreciate that. And I might take you up on it, but
Right.
but allow me to respond briefly if I can. We've delivered a proposal that is in every way consistent with the comprehensive plan. We've delivered a proposal that contemplates a density that's about 40% of the maximum that your comprehensive plan contemplates. What I hear you saying is, in order for us to recommend approval of this to the council, we need you to reduce the density, or as Mr. Dysinger, I think, is saying, reduce the number of unit counts all the way back to what's permitted by right today. If we are going to consider evaluating and revising the plan again, and whether or not we can do that, it would help us if we could have some real guidance, some parameters here that you're asking us to work with. I heard you on the 7.5 foot setback, although Mr. LeBruno is the only one who specifically said that. I hear that concept from others.
Well,
That's objective, and I get it. With regard to, sorry, I didn't mean
I'm sorry, go ahead. I mean, what you're suggesting is that we have a negotiation.
No,
Okay.
we can't do that.
We can't.
We can't give you a number. We can give you, I think, can't give you any kind of a number, but I think we're saying you've moved in the right direction, but I don't think you've moved far enough yet. We realize that probably to get the diversity of the type of housing, which means some apartment style, some townhouse style, the total's probably going to be higher than the original 1046 or 1040, whatever it was, and not as high as you're at now. And also, it seems like you don't see the tightness of the packing of maybe because this is your normal development or recently normal, you don't see the tightness of the packing of the homes as an issue, and I do. That's why the 7.5 foot makes a difference to me.
So what I'm struggling with
So-
is
Well,
the
In the
very-
5,000, in the 42 foot lot size.
No, they've done their marketing, but let the market dictate what customer buys what house. For us to sit here,
Well, Well, yes and
That's
no.
not-
I mean,
It's not funny. The market will dictate purchases.
What I'm struggling with is we have some very objective
quiet, please.
criteria
Yeah,
to
can we
work
be-
from in the comprehensive plan. We have very specific guidance there that we can rely on and reference. And the guidance I hear from you is that you want something different than the comprehensive plan.
No.
But there aren't objective.
I mean, we're going to get hung up. I know I'm going to yell at this comprehensive plan. This is a legislative process. Okay. You're trying to get legislation done.
Yes, sir.
So, yes, we have the comprehensive plan to guide us and focus us forward.
But not dictate.
But we're looking at this clearly on the three things I read off. Okay. That is what we judge it on. And comprehensive plan is part of it, and it does guide us and does focus us ahead on the future, but is not the end all. If I would still, again, I come from the private sector, not government. I'm looking for a way to get to a win-win where we get this property developed with a nice development that, yes, we don't want the houses not to sell either and have partially built houses or a half-built thing. We've seen that before. So I certainly hope your marketing people are on this, though I have a judgment on that. I think there's not that much demand for, because a lot of apartments and condos going in already in the area. I'm not sure you can absorb. They're really the absorption by the time you get, but that's your decision, okay? That's not mine.
That's our risk, of course.
Right, that's your risk, but I also don't want to see half-built properties and all that stuff too. So again, where I was last time, and historically, when we did the change to MR3 from 7,500 to 10,000, I was one of the dissenters that said we need to be careful because we still would like to see some diversity to housing selection, so somebody can choose an apartment, someone can choose a condo, someone can choose a townhouse, someone can choose a somewhat smaller home, someone can choose a larger home. And I think you're shooting into that pond, but I just think you got them the houses two packed together. I mean, that 7.5 foot size means a smaller house on that same small lot, which may not be marketable. So I'm not going to go any further, but but again, I'm open-minded yet to what Richard was saying. If we need more time, we have more time, and we'll make more time for you to get to a win-win. If you don't think we can, what you've heard today, you can get there, and if you need some time to talk about it, you can certainly have a short recess to caucus. So I'm committed to going as far as I can before giving you that I can't deny. But if you don't want it, you don't need to take it.
Thank you. And we will take your suggestion and talk amongst ourselves and respond to the fundamental question you're asking, which is, if we were to continue this, would you make changes to the plan? My request to you before we do so is, if we're going to set aside the objective parameters that are described in the comp plan in favor of something else, can you give us some guidance to help us understand what would be necessary for you to recommend approval?
I need how far can we go on guidance? Are we allowed to meet with them at two at a time? Because I was kind of, okay, whoever can give me a legal answer.
Go ahead. You go ahead and I'll answer too.
Technically, yes, the town would have to set that up. It would not be subject to open meetings requirements. I would say that
You're good.
for the purpose of this hearing, I think you're handling it just as you should. If you get into specifics, you're fine to set a number. If the board says that we think that whatever 1,000 units is the max that we're willing to commit to, you're fine to share that information with them. There's nothing stopping you from doing
Well,
that.
but I hate to be tight. I'm trying not to. If I say a number and they hit the number, it's like, well, I hit your number, but it still looks wrong.
So, but understood, but still, it is providing some objective criteria for them, and you can provide a range essentially, but there's nothing stopping you from providing that level of detail. I'll let Grady weigh in though.
I have nothing to add. I mean, you can make a proposed condition, and whether or not they want to meet it is up to them, as long as it doesn't violate a protected class of racial discrimination, sexual, etc.
Thanks, Grady. I think, and again, an objective number is a target. It's not a mandate. I think the target's 1,040 homes.
Well, in total
Total.
Yeah. I would be somewhat open to more than that, but
Yeah. I
I'm
would.
open to more than that.
I'm open to more than that, but not as close. Go ahead.
First meeting, my comments were, if you could meet us halfway in the middle, which between the 1,040 and the 1,630, or originally was 1,740, meet us somewhere in the middle. So you're roughly 13, high 13, low 1400s.
So the guidance I'm hearing, maximum residential cap of somewhere in a range similar to what Mr. Burns described, 7.5-foot side setbacks. Mr. LeBruno, you've made specific reference to lot size, which is challenging because, again, the diversity of housing options that's contemplated in your comp plan specifically contemplates smaller homes and smaller lots. If you're telling us
Well, I
that
guess
you can't recommend
I
approval,
guess I don't see that to be true.
Yes.
understood. I
I
understand
mean,
and respect
you
that.
could put a smaller house, you could put a teeny house on a 15,000, it would look stupid and probably wouldn't sell. But that's not what we're saying. A 40-foot lot, in my mind, is a city lot.
Is there a lot size comprehensively across the board that you envision as acceptable that you want us to take into account while we evaluate whether
I
or
don't
not
have
to
as
ask you
nearly
questions?
as much objection to your 52-foot and obviously 60 and higher lots. The 42-foot lots that start with a 5 handle on square feet are, in my mind, too small. And the fact that you really want the side setback to make sure that house is big enough to sell, that you're trying to stretch the house closer to the side lot line to get the house big enough to sell at a reasonable price. So I think the two are interrelated that way. That you could build a suitable, somewhat smaller house on the 52 and 60, whatever, 62-foot lots you've got with the 7.5-foot setback on the side. But that, again, is your choices.
Understood.
And I think getting us closer to the 7,500 square foot minimum is, I mean, that's.
Well, they wouldn't get there with that. But
Yeah, they won't get
again, your question on the mean and the median was somewhat applicable. You know, if we can, obviously you can get a mean, if you can get a median in that 7,500 square foot range or above.
Our median's at 7,800 square feet.
Right. Well, was that's
Should we talk about single family?
Yeah, the single family homes. Yeah, we don't want to get messed. And again, I mean, just getting rid of MF3 gets rid of 80 units, and then we have not as far to go on those single family homes. If you work on the spreading out the small lots, and I'm like hesitant to give you too many directives.
And work on some more open space.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Understand.
That back half of that MF3 would be a good spot for open space, but
I'd like to take you up on your offer and consult with our engineer and my client and evaluate whether or not there is any reason to ask you
sure
to continue this. Is there any other direction any other board members want us to take into account before we do
the
that?
burn issue is critical.
You won't get around the burn issue.
I don't think we'll get around the burn issue today unless you're willing to expand that number a bit. I mean, 500 feet's a par 3, but anyway, let's everyone need a motion to recess for 15 minutes so that the applicant can caucus. And
I'll make a motion.
Anybody second?
I second.
All approve? Aye. We have a 15-minute recess to at least 11:35. Okay, 11:35, recess is ended. We're back in session with the planning board. Frank? Sorry.
Thank you, Chairman LeBruno. I appreciate the time to discuss that amongst ourselves. Really appreciate the interest and the comments that we heard from you. As we evaluate it, we continue to believe that the plan that we have proposed warrants rezoning on the criteria that are in front of you to consider. We know how consistent it is with your policy documents. And while we are certainly open-minded to considering changing some aspects of the design, we don't feel like we've got either enough or reasonable enough guidance from the planning board to do so in a way that would be meaningful. And so therefore, we're not asking you to continue this meeting.
Okay. Wait, are you on?
Check.
There you go.
Testing 1, 2. Former audio engineer, I should know. Well, Ron, do you want to?
No, go ahead. Do we have a motion?
I have a motion to deny recommendation based on the submission by the applicant. Do we have a second?
Don't look at me.
Second.
We have a second. Let me, I guess, read it. So this is option B. Before we take a vote, the planning board hereby recommends denial of the proposed conditional zoning request, zoning map amendment, and finds that it is neither consistent nor inconsistent with the town's comprehensive plan, 2017 Town of Sunset Beach Land Use Plan, as there are conflicting policies that relate to various aspects of the proposed conditioning zoning request and comprehensive plan. So this is on page 12. Everybody can read. I guess to make it clear before we vote, and we'll vote on this motion here in a second, whatever we vote goes to the council. So we're making, if we adopt this, if we don't adopt it, we'll move on. If we do adopt this, that means we're sending this recommendation to denial to the town council, and then the town council still takes it up. So there will be, and maybe Chad, well, we'll wait, we'll take the vote. And then Chad can explain the process after that. So we have the motions on that. How do you vote on B?
I vote aye.
Stuart?
Aye.
I vote aye. So we have 4 ayes recommending denial to the council.
We have 3 ayes and 1 nay.
Oh, 1 nay. Sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Did I say?
I apologize. I apologize.
All right. You're on.
So 3-1, that motion passes, recommending denial of conditional zoning request to the council. And maybe Chad, if you would just explain for the record,
Yes.
and make sure the applicant then fully understands how this works going forward.
I will help everybody out. So this application will move forward to the town council to be heard as a recommending denial to the town council. The town council ultimately holds the final decision in this. Tentatively, April 1st, they will schedule a public hearing. And tentatively, May the 6th, I'll let the council dictate their scheduling on April the 1st. That the next available council date would be May the 6th, unless they schedule a public meeting, a special meeting, which would hold a public hearing for CZ. At that point, the notifications will have to be reran in the paper, notified on the site, and I have the envelopes in my office, and everybody will be sent out within 500 feet of the adjourning properties.
Okay. As far as our participation, do we give them a written report or anything? Do we?
The staff report?
No, do we? Obviously, the planning board had a lot of comments today. Do we? Can we just have to go and present as a public? What input or anything do we have with the council?
You have given your input to council.
Sorry, say it again.
You have given your input to council through this meeting, so you're recommending denial.
So we don't show up at those.
I will leave that up to
you. So, certainly the council will be made aware that the planning board recommended denial. You will functionally be in your individual capacity in any of the hearings before the council, if that helps answer your question.
There's no requirement or no process for a formal document.
the written recommendation is
Just
that
that
that motion that you just
And if they got a question for us, they can ask them, or
absolutely.
or if we make ourselves available at the meeting, they could call us for questions. It's
Sure,
up to them.
you're allowed to have as much discussion as you want, but as a board at this point in time,
We're done.
You're done. Yep.
Okay. The next thing to move on to, there's no more new business, any more administrative items?
Yes.
We have a meeting next week?
If we could, can we excuse
wait a
Mr.
minute, Grady.
Richardson? Are we good with excusing
Is
Mr.
there any
Richardson?
need for me further on any of the agenda items?
No.
No.
All right. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you.
All
Have a good
right,
rest of
thank
your
you,
day.
Grady.
Well, the applicant can also.
We're not done yet.
Well, no, they can leave.
Yeah,
if they want.
yeah, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I was going through on administrative. We have a meeting next week, right?
Yeah, so
We're going to get a packet on that shortly.
well, let's talk about that. Let's let the room calm down, and then we can talk about that. The first
Sorry,
part
I
of
misheard you. Sorry, I misheard you.
the first administrative item I'd like to address is to say thank you. As you all know, that next Wednesday is my last day with the town. I will be moving on to the town of Belleville. It's been a pleasure to work with each of you. Wanted to say thank you for that. With that being said, and Lisa just left, I need Lisa back in here.
Okay, while we're getting Lisa back in here, I'd just like to, as a member of the council and a resident here, thank you for your service.
Right.
And we wish you nothing but the best in your future endeavors.
Likewise, pleasure working with you. It's always
Thank you.
been good. I also wish you the best. Enjoy your short commute.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good luck
Thank
to you.
you.
Nice working with you.
Thank you. Need Lisa. I just need Lisa back in here. So we have a scheduled planning board meeting next Thursday. Are you available? Yeah, that's
That's a no.
what?
Can we go back to this if we go to public comments, or are we stuck?
Yes. Yeah, you can go on to public comments and we can
Okay.
come back to
Well, we'll
this
hold that in
administrative.
base if we can find Lisa Anglin, our administrator. Item 7 is the second period of public comments. So likewise, if anyone would like to make a comment, they can come to the podium, identify themselves, and limit themselves to the 3 minutes. We're happy to hear from the public again. This gentleman in the blue. I gotta get my stopwatch up.
My name is Bill Taylor. I live at 7028 Bonaventure Street in Sunset Ridge. I want to thank all of you gentlemen for your input today. I would also like to recommend in the future, when you have one of these meetings, that the public be able to rebuttal or have a say after the builders got up and have said what they have to say, and do essentially what you were doing to him today, or to whatever group in the future is coming before us. I think it would help the public, to get, like, okay, you said this and this is the way we feel about it. So if that's something that can be done in the future, actually limit it to 3 minutes, but that's fine. Just so we could get up, and then that way you wouldn't have people whispering in the background. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any further public comments? I don't know. We probably lost a group in the other room. Yeah. Is there anybody else left in this room? Chad? They all gone?
Y'all have no public comment, correct? Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right. I guess my only thing is that the decision to the meet on the 21st. I don't know if it's up in the air or not.
Well, if you were not leaving us, my understanding, the agenda would have been
You would get it tomorrow.
what was proposed to be on it.
Yeah, the proposal to be on it would be the discussion for.
Here she
There she
comes.
is. Yeah, sorry.
We always do. Jim.
The meeting on the 21st. What are we doing? Are they canceling that, or are we moving forward with the meeting?
Do you have any items
So
to go on that agenda
only
other than minutes?
The minutes, and then the discussion to the open space discussion to direct staff. I don't know if the TIA thing will be on it, but the only thing I know that was proposed to be on it was the direction, the emails I had received from Mr. Jones and Mr. LeBruno to formally discuss and direct staff on the open space text amendment.
And did you alert them that next Wednesday is your last day?
Yes.
So there will not be a staff member present to write any of these text amendments. So if you two want to take that and tackle it and bring it back at a later meeting, Wes will serve as interim until we find a new planning director. But until that time, neither Wes nor I have the time to allocate to writing a text amendment.
So you would like us to, so we would need the current text sent, and I guess a Word document form if possible. And then I'm happy to write, but I'm going to make sure the procedure, maybe we have limited to 2 of us. So
Yes.
it's not, so obviously Stuart would like to be, I'm happy to take a look at it. So if you send us the.
You don't have the UDO and Word version already?
They should. I'll make sure it's sent to you.
I think I just have a PDF.
PDF, okay.
PDF.
Yeah, we can get you a Word version.
And then we're so I guess the question is, well, yeah, we could.
Well, we hadn't even discussed it as a board.
That's correct.
So should we discuss it and then tackle the? So I guess they're kind of asking us, do we want to have a meeting next Thursday or not? It's on my calendar, so I'm available.
Yeah, I'm available.
So I'm happy to meet without staff, I guess.
Yeah.
We can just have and have just a discussion.
Public discussion.
Can we just, we'll just print out and distribute the section that we're going to look at, and then we can propose some language at the end of that meeting and send it to whom?
It would be me and Wes that will
Okay.
format it for you. You just need to give us the details and the guts of what you want the ordinance amended to.
Okay.
It
So-
should be fairly simple. It should be a very surface level discussion. It should be a discussion among themselves to ultimately decide as a board, does this need to move forward? A 2-2 tie would ultimately kill the motion. You would need a majority to think this is a good idea to move forward with it at that point, which basically putting in the open space language of the UDO into that 2 or 3 page agenda packet, be sent out tomorrow, send to them, let them make a decision among themselves, and then at that point during the meeting form a 2-person committee to ultimately start the language part of this. So
And that's what we'll do.
We have a little housekeeping. We have to elect a new vice chair.
That's
We'll
the
have to
other
elect a
thing.
new vice chair.
Yep.
Mhm.
So
we can-
other than that, that's the one thing on the agenda.
So we'll have the minutes, the vice chair, and discussion on proposing a text amendment if decided on concerning open space.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we have no applicants.
No applications of any.
No, you'll have an application in April potentially. So
Okay, so we'll deal with that in April.
Yep.
Right.
Okay,
And if you all meet, I will be here.
Fantastic.
fantastic. Okay, very good. We've concluded also the public comment. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
No nays? The meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you.